Tomorrow is the last day to register to vote in one of the most contentious primaries in recent memory. Right now on Face the State, after a week of fiery debate, what's next for Democrats and Republicans as Connecticut chooses a new governor? We'll ask J.R. Romano, state GOP chairman, and Democrat Arunan Arulampalam, former candidate for treasurer. Plus, all these TV ads, are they accurate? We'll talk with fact checker Matthew Kaufman of the Hartford Courant. And what are young voters thinking? We'll chat with two young professionals concerned about Connecticut, Matt Munson and Magdalena Jandro. All straight ahead this Sunday, August 12th, 2018.
From Eyewitness News, Connecticut's most watched local political program, this is Face the State.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us. I'm Dennis House. In less than 48 hours, you, the voters, will be heading to the polls in the most contentious primary in recent Connecticut memory. The big race, of course, is the race for governor, and all of the candidates debated this past week live right here on Channel 3, and now it's up to the people to choose. So what is ahead for both parties on election night? We are joined today by the chairman of the Connecticut Republican Party. He is J.R. Romano. Also from the Democrats, Arunan Arulampalam. He is the former candidate for treasurer, and we thank you so much for being with us here on this Sunday morning. And I'll begin with you, JR. Your message to those unaffiliated voters who can tomorrow go out and register as a Republican. Why should they do that?
Well, the best way that I can explain is help is on the way. Connecticut is in a fiscal crisis. We're on a road to ruin. And we need Republican leadership back in control of the purse strings. And unaffiliated voters should understand that Republicans represent a better direction, a new direction, where both Democrat candidates running are more the same. Higher taxes, lack of vision. And if you're an unaffiliated voters and you're tired of where the Connecticut stands in terms of its business climate and the litany of lasts that we have, Republicans are here to save the day.
And Arunan, what is your message to the unaffiliated voter watching right now who says, you know, I do want to vote Tuesday, but which party should I vote, should join for that particular
Sure.
event?
Look, I agree with JR that we're in a state of fiscal crisis. It's a fiscal crisis that's not going to be solved by a race to the bottom. It's a fiscal crisis that's been created by decades of mismanagement, 2 decades of Republican governors. And it's a fiscal crisis that for all of the hate he gets, Dan Malloy has really tried to make some of the right steps towards correcting. But it's going to be a long road. We've got to invest in the future of our state. We've got to look forward to what the future of the state looks like. And there's only one side that's really talking about it. There's one side that's really talking about what the future of Connecticut looks like.
Why are Democrats better suited, though, to handle the crisis?
Well, Democrats are coming to the table with solutions. I mean, solutions to fix our unfunded pension liabilities. I mean, realistic solutions. We're not talking about eliminating the income tax in 10 years. We're not talking about, voodoo economics, as George H.W. Bush might have said. We're talking about real solutions to real problems we have.
And what about Republicans? Why are they better suited?
Well, I think when we've seen the solutions the Democrats had to offer, it started 8 years ago with Dan Malloy, and what the Democrats don't want to own is the fact that they've been in charge of the legislature for 30 plus years. And the Republican governors were holding the Democrat policies at bay. When Dan Malloy became the governor, it was higher taxes, which Arunan just talked about. The Democrats are going to raise your taxes. That's what their solutions always are. Raising taxes, raising taxes, raising taxes. And what's ultimately happened is that our economy nationally is booming. Not here, though. We're missing a major opportunity where we could organically grow tax receipts through a booming economy, which is not happening here. And it is a direct result of Democrats controlling the legislature as well as having the governor's office. And I think Republicans are ready to not only lead from the governor's position, but also take over in the legislature so that we can pass policies that create opportunity for businesses, not bigger government, for businesses to grow and develop, create jobs, create tax receipts. That's how we get our way out of this.
You look like you want to jump in.
Sure.
Go right ahead.
We do see other parts of the country booming because other parts of the country have made real investments in infrastructure. They made real investments in workers, and we haven't made those investments in Connecticut.
Give me an example of investing in workers.
Look, we look at where our businesses are leaving to. They're leaving to states like New York and Massachusetts, high tax states that have made real investments in the future. And we've got to talk about solutions to move forward. We've got to talk about job creation and how we move the state forward. And the Republican Party seems determined to replicate the dysfunction we see going on in D.C. and not talk about real solutions to job creation in this state.
Well, but I think, Arunan, that's not a fair characterization, because when we're trying to compete with Boston and New York, they have a competitive advantage because they're major cities. Hartford's not a major city like Boston, New York. So our competitive
cities
advantage.
Like Pittsburgh are growing. Cities like Buffalo are growing.
Right,
cities
and
like
Connecticut's
Oakland,
not because
California are growing.
Right, but you're talking
it's
about
because
Pennsylvania.
they've invested.
But,
Look, we've got a workforce.
I let you finish. Let me finish. So the point here is that when you're wedged between Boston and New York, when you're taxing at the same rates of Boston and New York, why stay here? Because we're losing our competitive advantage to those communities. So if we're going to pay those rates, those companies are going to be in a place like New York and Boston. We should be, and I'm not suggesting not investing in infrastructure, but where the Democrats have failed in this state is, for example, we have one of the highest gas tax in the country. We haven't invested in infrastructure. We're talking about tolls, more taxes on the middle class to invest in infrastructure. It's always late to the game. The Democrats in this state have mismanaged our government to the point where we don't have the resources to do the investments that you're talking about, but yet we're still raising taxes to fix the problems. And what I'm saying is you reduce those taxes, you bring in bigger businesses, you recruit businesses to come here, which could grow your tax receipts. We are seeing this two different ways. The Democrats believe the government is the answer. I don't. Republicans don't. We believe in the private sector in creating opportunity and wealth for the individual, not bigger government.
Let me jump in for just one moment. Which of the Republican candidates do you take issue with in terms of the claims and the promises they're making?
Well, I mean, it seems like the entire field is in a race to the bottom. I mean, and it's not just on taxes. And if I could speak to that point really quickly before I get back. Look, we're not gonna. This is a state. If you look at our history, that 100 years ago, 50 years ago, was at the center of innovation, center of job creation, center of building businesses that were the greatest businesses in the country. And right now we're having a conversation that's about trying to retain what we built 50 years ago instead of talking about the future. There's a kid who this summer graduated from Yale or UConn or one of our great state colleges who has a great idea. And we got to figure out how to keep that kid here in Connecticut. And we're not going to do it by cutting taxes. We're going to do it by investing in innovation, in entrepreneurship, in job creation, and in our infrastructure. And that's what Democrats are at the table talking about, not maintaining the status quo, but building a better and brighter state, believing in the future of this state. And that's how we get ahead. And I don't see that anywhere on the across the board. I see an argument about who likes Trump more on the Republican side. I see an argument about who's going to be more lax in gun control. I don't see an argument about how we build a future in the state.
Chair, two of your candidates are promising to eliminate the income tax, and there are some experts who say that just cannot be done. Do you think that is going to be in the minds of voters tomorrow, that they're going to analyze that and say, well, maybe this isn't possible?
Well, and again, I'm going to go back to where I grew up, my roots, Derby, Connecticut. Blue collar, if not low to middle class in terms of the average annual salaries, I think around $40,000 a year. And here's what you don't understand, Arunan. When you graduate from Trinity, and I was fortunate enough to go to play football, massive student debt, all the things that every college student's dealing with right now. When you're talking about raising my taxes when I get my first job, I have student loans, and now I have to demand more of my salary to pay for the projects that Democrats want and think will solve our problems. It's fantasy. We should be relying on the individuals and businesses to grow, not forced mandated government policies. But in terms of the income tax, look, those two particular candidates, they have a vision. They're going to try to execute that. I think there's plenty of people in this state that recognize that the moment that we passed the income tax in our state, it was literally the start of our failure. We have lost population. We have lost businesses. We have only grown our debt $2 billion in the hole. And here's the reality. You talk about the race to the bottom. We're already at the bottom. We're already ranked at the bottom of almost every economic list there is. And if we miss this booming economy, we're not going to have those tax receipts to fill the $2 billion hole that we have in the deficit. We're not going to be able to protect teachers and their pensions. They've earned those pensions. And we don't have the revenue right now to protect those people. And the reality is Republicans want to grow this state's economy. We want to get out of this fiscal calamity that we're in through the private sector, not through government management.
I'm going to give Arunan the final word here.
I think to do that, we've got to use the full potential of our state. And your story's a compelling one, JR, that you worked hard, you grew up in Derby, you worked hard, got to college, you're paying off student loans. I'm still paying off student loans. And by the way, the number one thing that's going to cause my taxes to go up this year is the federal elimination of assault deduction. But look, we work hard, but I live in a neighborhood in Hartford in the South End where a lot of kids there would love to have the opportunities you and I had. Then they're not going to be available to them, because we have an education system that has failed them. We have a society that has ignored them. And we need to use all of our potential. There's no reason that the next Steve Jobs has any more chance of coming out of Greenwich than he does coming out of Hartford. The fact is we're not using the potential of all of our residents. And that's the way we grow this.
We're out of time. I appreciate your time. Romano, Arunan Arulampalam, thank you so much for being on the program today. It was a good debate.
Yeah.
You guys should run for office someday. We'll carry that. In a moment, all those TV ads you're seeing, are they accurate? We'll ask an expert coming up, and we welcome you to check out past interviews at Face the State. We've interviewed every candidate for governor and lieutenant governor except for one who chose not to come on. You can watch them on YouTube and on our app.